Now, look, we've got to talk about the ladies over at The View, the delightful ladies of The View. And Whoopi Goldberg, she's back at it again with more anti-Trump propaganda. Now, for some context, Donald Trump had pardoned crypto founder Changpeng CZ Zhao. But when Trump was asked during that 60 Minutes interview about the pardon, he said that he didn't know anything about it. Whoopi Goldberg then accused the president of using an auto pen. And watch now what happens as she actually got a correction note midway through the television show. It was passed on. Have a look.
When they're listening to, what the hell, what?
I love when Sonny passes notes.
We don't know if Trump used an auto pen to part. It was a joke.
Yes. We don't know if Trump used an auto pen to part.
Come on.
But we do know that he didn't know who that crypto guy was.
Well, I'm sorry. You know, the hardest thing about this job now is no one understands nuance.
They're very, very sincere, Kosha. They're definitely not sincere. But why do the left always make up nonsense when they get angry and caught out?
That one was actually quite funny to me, Danica, because usually when those notes come through, and I think they're like on their 8th or 9th note this year, the View ladies keep saying things and then have to issue corrections. It's coming through from the producer, and usually it's coming through from legal if you're saying something. And it's a pretty high bar, certainly in America with the First Amendment, to give a live on-air correction in that way. And I've sensed a little bit of insubordination there, where, you know, it was talent, Whoopi Goldberg, against the producer, who probably told Sonny Hostin to write that down, and maybe against their legal team. So that should be interesting to see how that one plays out. But I think everybody is a little bit gun shy, I think, right now, of pulling the trigger, rhetorically speaking, against Trump and his supporters all the time because of these lawsuits that we just talked about, and the fact that they have settled. The View's parent ABC also settled because George Stephanopoulos made incorrect statements about Trump, and that was one example. So I think that they're a little bit on a short leash, if you will, right now, and it sounds like that has really made Whoopi Goldberg, at least in that clip, very, very annoyed.
Well, you know what? Time to start talking fact then. You know, there's ways around. If you don't be trigger shy, you know, just tell the truth, I say. Now, look, let's take a look at the blind leading the blind, as I'll say. Former Labor Prime Minister Paul Keating says he gave Anthony Albanese some fighting points ahead of his meeting with Donald Trump last month. The meeting obviously did go quite well. They seemed to get along. So Paul Keating added, quote, "It turned out he didn't have to use them, didn't have to use his talking points, Kosha. But I can't think of anyone worse for the Prime Minister to have advice from."
And I want to know, what were these fighting points? That would that would be quite interesting. It would make a lot of news, I think. The meeting did go quite well. I will say, in Prime Minister Keating's defense, he did express a little bit of nuance back in the day during Trump's first term in terms of his understanding of Trump's approach to China, Trump's approach to the trade war, et cetera, when many others from both sides of politics around the world were not expressing any of that understanding. So maybe just in that domain, he felt that he was more qualified or more experienced, I should say, than Prime Minister Albanese, and thought he could lend a helping hand. Who knows? But yes, in general, they are not. They don't see the world, by and large, with maybe some exceptions, through the same lens as Trump. They have to deal with him because he is in the Oval Office right now, and it's the strongest ally, and everybody will do it in their way. I think Prime Minister Albanese has very much played defense and passive, I would say, right now, up until now, but it looks like things are moving a little bit in the right direction, and Paul Keating maybe just wanted to be in the news cycle, and that's why he put that out there.
Yes, I agree. He loves to just trot out a couple of news lines every now and then, make himself feel relevant, Kosha. Now, look, an Anti-Semitism Research Institute has released an 11th hour report about its concerns over New York City socialist mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani. It explains the controversial views of his father, a professor at Columbia University, on Israel, as well as how Zoran founded the Students for Justice in Palestine chapter while he was in college. It also details his past statements and positions on it, and lists the anti-Israel individuals who endorse him for mayor. Kosha, by all accounts, he's going to win this. How worried must the Jewish community be?
I think, worried, as are business owners, as are just everyday taxpayers, all sorts of people who are going to bear the brunt of his policy agenda, which he has made no secret of throughout this campaign. The interesting thing to me in this, though, is that the Jewish community in New York, which is the largest diaspora of Jewish people outside of Israel in the entire world, live in New York City, just shy of a million of them. 40% of them still support Mamdani. And among the crowd under the age of 45, including Jewish people, support him and are voting for him. So that is the thing over here, I think, that's impossible to ignore, that despite these statements that he's made and these studies that are coming out, they are not lining up against him. They could have voted for Cuomo. They could have supported the Republican candidate, Sliwa. They have not. They're voting him in. And, as the saying goes, you get the government you vote for. And unfortunately, that is what's going to happen here. And they are going to have to suffer the consequences.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute disaster. And, he's trying to get the young vote now, going out to clubs. I just feel like his whole policy is based on vibes, not actual policy. So we'll see how it goes. Kosha, before we let you go, I want to get your reaction to Bill Maher. He's, I think, a recovering TDS sufferer, but he appeared on a podcast and called out Jimmy Kimmel for not thanking him after he defended Kimmel following his suspension. Have a look at this.
Jimmy apparently doesn't like me too much anymore because he thanked everybody but me, and I was adamant about supporting him that week and the next week. My problem with him and hosts like that, quite frankly, they're all quite similar in this regard, is that they're ideologically captured by one side. It's just not what I do or what I'm doing. And there's a reason why half the country feels insulted by them and has turned off to them.
Kosha, I thought that was an interesting point that he made at the end there, that he said half the country is turned off. Do you agree?
For sure. He's right there. We can see it in the ratings. This whole genre of late night television, an American creation in its heyday of Johnny Carson and that era, was really just something so unique, so beloved culturally. It set the tone. It made fun of both sides. They didn't take themselves too seriously. And people would sit down at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. and watch these shows live. And we've come a long way from that for many reasons, structurally, with the media, other forms of entertainment that compete with them and all of that. But a big reason is this, that they just somehow devolved from being equal opportunity offenders and comedians to being very politically charged, very much on one side. And yes, half the country that supports the right side of the aisle does not find them funny at all, doesn't find that content worth spending an hour listening to. And Bill Maher, once in a while, he is of the left, but he does pop up here and there and speak sanity and fairness a little bit. And this would be an example of where, he did that. And it sounds like he's really hurt by the fact that he didn't get gratitude publicly from Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, very, very clear. Kosha Gada, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate your time.